All right, so let's talk about everybody's favorite subject, fat.
Is that everybody's favorite subject?
Seems to be the one people are preoccupied about, always trying to lose fat, lose weight.
Yeah.
It's a complex. I mean, you can grab our fat loss remedy there and show people what that looks like, but it's our thickest and most comprehensive report that we've done so far. But
it's interesting. This has been a problem from decades ago. This is not something new. This is from the beginning of the 20th century. It's been talked about a lot. It's been part of life.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah, back in the a couple hundred years ago, if you were fat, that was a sign of you were well off, and that was a good thing.
Yeah.
If you're skinny, you were starving, but now it's reversed itself. So, just talk about fat. Is it bad to have too much fat?
No, not necessarily. It's kind of interesting. We often think, you hear about, oh, fat is bad for you. And that's not necessarily the case. As a matter of fact, if you think about human existence, or even animals and everything, the normal state is feast and famine. You have a lot, and then you have none. You have a lot, and then none. So you think about it, the apples come ripe on the tree, and you get, a month of supply of apples, and you're eating all you can, you're bloating up. And then what? And then there's no more apples. And what are you going to do? You're going to dig up roots or kill a boar, or, whatever you're going to do to get something to eat while you're using all of that fat. So our bodies are actually made for feast and famine, and that's the way it's always been. So we get fat easily. Why? Because we feast all the time. There's no famine. Mm-hmm. And that's the problem right there.
Mm-hmm. So you're a proponent of fasting.
Oh, yeah.
And that's total no food, just water?
No food, just water. I actually modify it all the time for individuals because there's no single thing that's ever been shown to help people live longer or better to prevent illness is fasting. So if you hear about, if you take this special, this resveratrol or this krill oil or whatever the new fad is for preventing aging, anti-aging kind of stuff, you get on these hormones or whatever, you know what? None of it's proven. The only thing ever shown to be proven to work is fasting.
Now, is that because of caloric restriction?
Yes. It makes you efficient. And efficiency is what it's all about. So when I was in medical school, they told us, do not recommend fasting. Why not? Because it makes you efficient. And then if you stay on your 3,000 calorie a day diet, you're going to get really fat. And that's right. But what if you fast and then you go on a 1,000 calorie a day diet? Then you're really efficient at using those 1,000 calories. And you make 1/3 of the, actually it's a lot less than that, of the oxygen-free radicals. So that's why you don't age, because you just don't make those oxygen-free radicals.
Carotenoids.
Carotenoids are the coloring in fruits and vegetables that absorb free radicals. And they're found mostly in fat-soluble areas. So they're not in the blood, for example. They would be in cell membranes or inside of cells. Okay. And they work very well. And that's one of the things that the big lies that we're told is you need more carotenoids, more. So you should be taking these pills and drinking these drinks with carotenoids in them. And we're told, this is what we're told. Okay, you cannot get enough food to meet your needs for absorbing all your free radicals, right? You can't. You can't eat that much. So you have to take pills. You have to take vitamin pills. Now, is that true? Yeah, if you're eating 3,000 calories a day, because the number of oxygen-free radicals multiplies exponentially by the number of calories, whereas your carotenoids, as you're eating more and more and more, you're only going arithmetically. So as you're going up, this is the free radicals are going up a lot faster. So you have to take pills to catch up, right? But what's your other option? Well, eat less. So if you have fewer calories, then you don't need that much, and then you can get plenty of your carotenoids from your food.
So what are the 5 worst or most addicting foods that you recommend people stay away from?
Foods, sugar. Sugar is amazingly addictive. And
all forms of sugar?
And it's damaging. Well, sucrose, high fructose corn syrup, but sugar as a rule, including carbohydrates, simple sugars like cornstarch or starches. So sugars and starches, yeah.
Which would include bread, simple bread.
Would include bread, yeah. So that's one. Number 2 would be coffee, the caffeine. People think they need the caffeine, but multiple studies have shown that in the long run it doesn't help you as much as it hinders you. And it does mess up your metabolism to some extent. But you know what? Actually, coffee is not, it's not as bad as like sugar. Sugar is really destructive to your metabolism. And coffee hasn't been shown to increase anything. There's no like cancers associated with coffee. There's nothing. But all it does is mess up your adrenal glands. So, you know, people get overstressed and get anxiety and panic attacks and stuff like that. Again, just quit drinking coffee, okay? And then you'll sleep better and all that. Alcohol. Alcohol on an occasional basis doesn't do any damage or anything. It's the daily. And it's surprising to me how many people I test for their insulin levels, and the alcohol brings up the insulin and causes them to hold on to fat easily, especially right around the middle, where the bad fat, so to speak. And if they get off the alcohol, then their insulin comes down and they're able to lose weight. And so I used to tell people, well, quit eating sugars and starches, and I didn't even look at the alcohol. Now I look at the alcohol because that brings up. That's why you've heard of beer belly. That's why, because the rise in insulin. Number 4 would be birthday cake. No, ice cream.
Ice cream.
I had somebody. He had addictions to cigarettes, drugs of various kinds, alcohol, and sugar, and so he gave up his sugar, his alcohol, his cigarettes. He was going to AA. He gave up the drugs. He was doing really well, and he came in for a test, and he was thin. He thinned out and everything, and he came in and he tested positive for diabetes. And I'm like, David, well, you tested positive for diabetes. He says, you're not taking away my ice cream. I gave up my alcohol, I gave up my cigarettes, I gave up everything, but I'm not giving up my ice cream. I said, well, how much ice cream do you eat? He said, oh, you know, one of those little Ben & Jerry's things. One a night.
Half gallon?
No. The quart, what are they? A quarter pint,
kind,
yeah. The one. And he, so he gave it up, and he doesn't have diabetes anymore. But ice cream is a big one.
I think in heaven, you're going to be able to eat all the sugar you want.
You think?
And it'll be just fine. Isn't that just kind of ironic that something that tastes so sweet and good just isn't good for you?
Yeah.
Why is that?
Life is like that.
Yeah.
That's funny.
So number 5.
What would be number 5?
French fries?
Yeah.
Sometimes that donuts, well, that's already covered, sugar and simple carbs, but French fries, that's the oil and
potatoes are great, but when they're French fried, you know, they cease to be great. When you mix fat with sugar, it's a really tasty combination, but it's very bad for the metabolism. Increases fat rather dramatically. You know what the worst food, like people that have type 2 diabetes and insulin resistant, the worst food they can eat from the standpoint of keeping the blood sugar up higher and keeping it up longer is pizza. Something about pizza, it's like pure calories. There's nothing in pizza except calories. It's all starch, you know, carbohydrates and fat, and protein. There's just something about it that is really bad for metabolism.
Oh, we just lost about 90% of our viewers, but let's talk about the 5 best foods that you can eat that you recommend.
Oh yeah. Kale, broccoli. If you look at the Brassica vegetables, broccoli.
Is that like branch?
Brussels sprouts. Brassica is the cruciferous vegetables.
Okay.
They're all really good. Very high nutrient, low calorie ratio. So that's the way you look at the best foods are the ones with high nutrient, low calorie. So among the fruit, the berries are the best. Blueberries, strawberries, raspberries, boysenberries. They have a lot of nutrient with relatively low calorie. Let's see, other best foods. Whole grains. Whole grains contain pretty much everything you need. Fish, as long as it's wild fish and not farmed fish. Here's the interesting thing, people are eating fish to get their higher omega-3 oils, and they think they're getting that. When they get a farmed fish, though, what are those fish fed when they're farmed?
Corn.
They're fish meal and often cornmeal.
Yeah.
So then what are they getting? They're getting corn oil. Well, what's corn oil? Well, it's very high in omega-6 and low in omega-3, so that's what you're going to get in your fish, because the fish are going to be made out of what they eat. And
that's why you want wild fish.
That's why you want wild-caught fish. Yeah. Very good for you.
Yeah.
Green vegetables such as spinach and chard and everything green.
What about beets?
It's most excellent. Beets?
Like, the dark, rich colors of food, is that a good giveaway on the nutrient value? If it's not artificial, obviously.
Yeah, to some extent, absolutely. Coloring is nutrient. And this has only been known for 20 years. They thought coloring was just there for color, that it didn't do anything. Just made it a color. It turns out they're important nutrients for preventing like macular degeneration and cancers and all kinds of things.
So you talked about some fish. Any other type of meats that are on the good list?
Yeah, I really enjoy a steak once in a while. I make sure that it is a grass-fed beef. And here's why. Again, it's the oils. If they're fed corn, then the beef is going to be made out of corn oil. If they're fed grass has a really nice omega-6 to omega-3 ratio, where it has high omega-6 and high omega-3 and low omega-6. So you actually have a sort of reverse ratio compared to like corn is the opposite. And so grass-fed beef actually is pretty good for you. It's not, it contains the good kinds of oils and zinc and all the things that meat does.
You mentioned whole grains earlier. Now, some people take that as whole wheat bread, but wheat bread isn't necessarily a good substitute for white bread.
Yeah. What?
What do you mean by whole grains? I mean, it's beyond just wheat then, right?
Yeah. So somebody eats, instead of white rice, if they eat brown rice, there's significant improvement in their in their health. In China, they did a study on diabetes. They have a baseline level of diabetes. People who ate brown rice were 10% less likely to have diabetes. People who ate white rice were 6% more likely to have diabetes from the baseline. So it was a significant difference in just having the brown rice versus the white rice. And then all of the other grains too, including wheat. One of the problems with wheat is today's wheat contains a lot of gluten, and it's a protein that's not easily digested. And because it doesn't break open very easily in the stomach, in the acid of the stomach, and to be able to cut up by all the enzymes. So it's common to get gluten problems, allergies or sensitivities. So if people have wheat periodically, occasionally, like maybe for a couple of weeks they have some wheat and then they don't for a month or so or whatever, that actually works fine. You're not going to get those kind of problems. The problem is the daily, every day having it. that creates these problems, like with the wheat you're talking about. The body's made for feast and famine in all things, and if you exercise every single day, you're not going to give your muscles time to repair. The same thing happens with whatever else you're doing. There's one other issue I had. The omega-3, that's one of those things that we're told we just need more fish oil, more fish oil, more fish oil. Flaxseed oil, and they're advertising, this is high in omega-3 and all that. Why? Well, it's because what we need is a 1-to-1 to a 6-to-1 ratio of omega-6 to omega-3. And that's the norm of where it should be. But the average American eats 30-to-1 omega-6 to omega-3. So they say, well, what's the resolution of that? Well, eat more omega-3, right? To bring it up. But what's your other option?
Bring that down.
To eat less omega-6. And you know what? That is a better option. And that's true. Okay, ask me a question about nutrients.
So let me ask you about nutrients.
Ask me a question about if people should take vitamins.
Okay. So do you think people should take vitamins?
Well, if they need them, obviously. The problem we have mostly in here is people will come in and they'll bring bags full of vitamins. I'm taking this and I'm taking that and I need this. Gamma tocopherol that almost nobody has, and so I'm popping these pills, and I read it in the magazine that said everybody needs that. Well, it's true, everybody needs that, but when you get the whole foods, you're getting all of the nutrients. So you don't get just an isolated nutrient. One of the problems with taking something every single day is we don't absorb them very well. So there was a study done on magnesium where they would give people a gram of magnesium and they'd draw their blood and measure their absorption. So you get this much. Over a period of 90 days, it went down and down and down and down until they were getting about 30% absorption. And they go, why? Why are you only absorbing, in only 9 days, you're only absorbing 30%? Why? So what they found was that the enzymes in your intestines, you're not absorbing it as well. But there was another issue, and that is the bacteria in your intestines are proliferating according to what nutrients they're getting. And so they're taking up your nutrients. And so the bacteria are taking some of your nutrient. And so if you take something every single day, then you're growing those bacteria that are using that nutrient. And then you're becoming less efficient at using it, at absorbing it anyway.
Yeah. Have you recommended diatomaceous earth for people?
As a matter of fact, I have. People that have organic toxicities, like with people who eat, we use the word organic. People who eat organic foods have less toxicity from like fertilizers and pesticides. People who get fertilizers and pesticide poisonings, diatomaceous earth is great. It really works well.
I think it's good for parasites and worms,
parasites
and
worms.
which a lot of people have and have no idea that they do. So,
Right.
yeah, good. How about protein? A lot of people recommend having like a protein shake within 30 minutes of getting up in the morning. What's a good morning routine? Does that include protein? What are your thoughts?
Not necessarily. I make a plan for everybody based on their individual needs. Protein, the purpose for drinking protein in the morning is to get you going. The protein is absorbed and you use it to make neurotransmitters and hormones and all the functions of your body. And that's fine. And part of that is if you're going to eat the protein, then you're not going to be hungry because your leptin's not going to be saying, oh, I need more, I need more. So that's the idea behind it. But it's not necessarily the case. Some people don't need that. And so when people do need that, and mostly it's a trial and error kind of thing.
Mm-hmm. Are you a fan of like different, like carb typing or protein typing, or the blended, as far as, some people need more carbs, other people need more protein?
Yes. Yeah, it's true. But based on how they use how they use their proteins and carbohydrates. I do metabolic testing to see what their greatest benefit is going to be, how they're going to be most efficient.
Mm-hmm. I don't think we talked about this on camera yet, so I'll ask this again. But so, are there any magic diet pills that work that you're aware of?
No.
Why is that?
Because I think I've seen them all. I don't know. I think I have. And ultimately, the idea of a diet pill is either it's going to suppress your appetite so that you're going to eat less, like all the amphetamines do, all the old Fastin and all those. Or it's going to have a secondary purpose, like controlling a hormone or something like that. And ultimately, what it comes down to is eating less. And so as soon as you withdraw that pill, what are you doing? Well, you're going to go back to your old habits, and you're going to start gaining the weight. And usually, if in the case of amphetamines, you gain it back +4 on the average. So the pills, I don't find them useful at all.
Mm-hmm. All right, last question. How does a person find out what their ideal body weight is? How do you determine that?
I ask people. That's the truth. I ask them, what's your ideal body weight? And if they can't come up with a number, well, they almost always come up with a number. And it's almost always a reasonable number. And if they don't, then I start asking them other questions. How much did you weigh when you graduated from high school? And most people know. And they'll go, oh, I was 120 pounds when I graduated from high school. And because that's usually the time, especially women have stopped growing during their high school years, so they're not going to grow anymore, and they've just finished growing, and they haven't had all of the hormones kick in yet, and they haven't had babies yet, so all the craziness of gaining weight usually isn't there. So right about finishing high school is probably a fairly good indicator. But there's a wide range of normal, and some people are better being thin, and some people are better with some meat on them. Mm-hmm. And so I don't dictate an ideal. I ask them.
I think with fat loss and weight loss, people beat themselves up internally. They're always thinking of, I should be 10 pounds lighter, or 20 or 30 or whatever. I mean, is it better to just not worry about it so much if you're close, or what are your thoughts on the whole mental game and all that? Or is that just part of who we are that's good for us?
I think fighting with it to some extent is good for you, because I actually tell people, step on the scale every day and write it down. Because when people see, especially if you can graph it, that's really cool. And they have these new apps for your cell phone apps that you can go on and you can enter it in, and you can see these graphs of how much you weighed yesterday and last year and whatever. And following that, it keeps in the front of your mind your diet. And that's really, remember, that's the foundation of health. Right. Mm-hmm. So if that keeps somebody healthy because they're weighing themselves every day and they're going, yeah, I'm not going to eat that today because I'm 2 pounds heavier. That's great.